صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. إلى حب محمد المصطفى صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أدعوك يا ربي كما أمرتني، فاستجب لي كما وعدتني، إنك لا تخلف الميعاد. اللهم إني أسألك برحمتك التي وسعت كل شيء، وبقوتك التي قهرت بها كل شيء، وخضع لها كل شيء، وذل لها كل شيء، وبجبروتك التي غلبت بها كل شيء، وبعزتك التي لا يقوم لها شيء، وبعظمتك التي ملأت كل شيء، وبسلطانك الذي على كل شيء، وبوجهك الباقي بعد فناء كل شيء، وبأسمائك التي ملأت أركان كل شيء، وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء، وبنور وجهك الذي أضاء له كل شيء. يا نور يا قدوس، يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تهتك العصام، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النقام، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعام، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء، اللهم اغفر لي كل ذنب أذنبت وكل خطيئة أخطأتها، اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك، وأستشفع بك إلى نفسك، وأسألك بجودك أن تدنيني من قربك، وأن توزعني شكرك، وأن تلهمني ذكرك. اللهم إني أسألك سؤال خاضع متذلل خاشع، أن تسامحني وترحمني، وتجعلني بقسمك راضيا قانعا، وفي جميع الأحوال متواضعا. اللهم وأسألك سؤال من اشتدت فاقته، وأنزل بك عند الشدائد حاجته، وعظم فيما عندك رغبته. اللهم عظم سلطانك، وعلى مكانك، وخفي مكرك، وظهر أمرك، وغلب قهرك، وجرت قدرتك، ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك. اللهم لا أجد لذنوب غافرا، ولا لقبائحي ساترا، ولا لشيء من عمل القبيح بالحسن مبدلا غيرك. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك. ظلمت نفسي، ظلمت نفسي، ظلمت نفسي، وتجرأت بجهلي وسكنت إلى قديم ذكرك لي ومنك علي. اللهم مولاي، كم من قبيح سترت، وكم من فادح من البلاء أقلت، وكم من عثار وقيته، وكم من مكروه دفعت، وكم من ثناء جميل لست أهلا له نشرت. اللهم عظم بلائي، وأفرط بي سوء حالي، وقصرت بي أعمالي، وقعدت بي أغلالي، وحبسني عن نفعي بعد آمالي. وخدعتني الدنيا بغرورها، ونفسي بخيانتها، ومطالي يا سيدي. فأسألك بعزتك أن لا يحجب عنك دعائي سوء عملي وفعالي، ولا تفضحني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري، ولا تعاجلني بالعقوبة على ما عملته في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي، ودوام تفريطي وجهالتي، وكثرة شهواتي وغفلتي. وكن اللهم بعزتك لي في الأحوال كلها رؤوفا، وعلي في جميع الأمور عطوفا. إلهي وربي، من لي غيرك؟ أسأله كشف ضري والنظر في أمري. إلهي ومولاي، أجريت علي حكما اتبعت فيه هوى نفسي، ولم أحترس فيه من تزيين عدوي، فغرني بما أهوى وأسعده على ذلك القضاء، فتجاوزت بما جرى علي من ذلك بعض حدودك، وخالفت بعض أوامرك، فلك الحجة علي في جميع ذلك، ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه قضاؤك. وألزمني حكمك وبلاؤك، وقد أتيتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي، معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستقيلا مستغفرا منيبا مقرا مذعنا معترفا، لا أجد مفرا مما كان مني، ولا مفزعا أتوجه إليه في أمري غير قبولك عذري، وإدخالك إياي في سعة من رحمتك. اللهم فاقبل عذري، وارحم شدة ضري، وفكني من شدي وثاقي. يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني، ورقة جلدي، ودقة عظمي. يا من بدأ خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي، هبني لابتداء كرمك وسالف برك بي، يا إلهي وسيدي وربي. أتراك معذبي بنارك بعد توحيدك، وبعد ما انطوى عليه قلبي من معرفتك، ولهج به لساني من ذكرك، واعتقده ضميري من حبك، وبعد صدق اعترافي ودعائي خاضعا لربوبيتك، هيهات أحد أنت أكرم من أن تضيع من ربيت أو تبعد من أدنيت أو تشرد من آويت أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيته ورحمت. وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي أتسلط النار على وجوه خرت لعظمتك ساجدا وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقا وبشكرك مادحا وعلى قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققا وعلى ضمائر حوت من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشعة وعلى جوارح سعت إلى الأوطان تعبدك طائعة وأشارت باستغفارك مذعنا. ما هكذا الظن بك ولا أخبرنا بفضلك عنك يا كريم يا ربي وأنت تعلم ضعفي عن قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها على أن ذلك بلاء ومكروه قليل مكثو يسير بقاء قصير مدة فكيف احتمالي لبلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكاره فيها وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه ولا يخفف عن أهله لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض. يا سيدي فكيف بي وأنا عبدك الضعيف الذليل الحقير المسكين المستكين يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي لأي الأمور إليك أشكو ولما منها أضج وأبكي لأليم العذاب وشدتي أم لطول البلاء ومدتي فلئن صيرتني للعقوبات مع أعدائك وجمعت بيني وبين أهل بلائك وفرقت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك فهبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي صبرت على عذابك فكيف أصبر على فراقك وهبني صبرت على حر نارك فكيف أصبر عن النظر إلى كرامتك أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجائي عفوك فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا لئن تركتني ناطقا لأضجن إليك بين أهلها ضجيج الآملين ولأصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين ولأبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين ولأنادينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين يا غاية آمال العارفين يا غياث المستغيثين يا غياث المستغيثين يا غياث المستغيثين يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين ويا إله العالمين أفتراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفته وذاق طعم عذابها بمعصيته وحبس بين أطباقها بجرمه وجريرته وهو يضج إليك ضجيج مؤمل لرحمتك ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك ويتوسل إليك بربوبيتك يا مولاي فكيف يبقى في العذاب وهو يرجو ما سلف من حلمك أم كيف تؤلمه النار وهو يأمل فضلك ورحمتك أم كيف يحرقه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانا أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفا أم كيف يتقلقل بين أطباقها وأنت تعلم صدقا أم كيف تشجره زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا رب أم كيف يرجو فضلك في عتقه منها فتتركه فيها هيهات هيهات ما ذلك الظن بك ولا المعروف من فضلك ولا مشبه لما عاملت به الموحدين من برك وإحسانك فباليقين أقطع لولا ما حكمت به من تعذيب جاحديك وقضيت به من إخلاد معانديك لجعلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما وما كانت لأحد فيها مقرا ولا مقاما لكنك تقدست أسماؤك أقسمت أن تملأها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين وأنت جل ثناؤك قلت مبتدئا وتطولت بالإنعام متكرما أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون إلهي وسيدي فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها وبالقضية التي حتمتها وحكمتها وغلبت من عليه أجريتها أن تهب لي في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمت وكل ذنب أذنبت وكل قبيح أسررت وكل جهل عملت كتمته أو أعلنت أخفيته أو أظهرت وكل سيئة أمرت بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جوارحي وكنت أنت الرقيب علي من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم وبرحمتك أخفيت وبفضلك سترت وأن توفر حظي من كل خير أنزلت أو إحسان تفضل وأن توفر حظي من كل خير أنزلت أو بر تنشر أو رزق تبسط أو إحسان تفضل أو بر تنشر أو رزق تبسط أو ذنب تغفر أو خطأ تستر يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك رقي يا من بيده ناصيتي يا عليما بضري ومسكنتي يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي يا ربي يا ربي يا ربي يا ربي يا ربي يا ربي يا إلهي وسيدي يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك رقي يا من بيده ناصيتي يا عليما بضري ومسكنتي يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب أسألك بحقك وقدسك وأعظم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي في الليل والنهار بذكرك معمورا وبخدمتك موصولا وأعمالي عندك مقبولا حتى تكون أعمالي وأورادي كلها وردا واحدا وحالي في خدمتك سرمدا يا سيدي يا من عليه معولي يا من إليه شكوت أحوالي يا ربي يا ربي يا ربي يا ربي قو على خدمتك جوارحي واشدد على العزيمة جوانحي وهب لي الجد في خشيتك والدوام في الاتصال بخدمتك حتى أسرح إليك في ميادين السابقين وأسرع إليك في المبادرين وأشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين وأدنو منك دنو المخلصين وأخافك مخافة الموقنين وأجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين اللهم ومن أرادني بسوء فأرد ومن كادني فكد واجعلني من أحسن عبيدك نصيبا عندك وأقربهم منزلة منك وأخصهم زلفة لديك فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك وجد لي بجودك واعطف علي بمجدك واحفظني برحمتك واجعل لساني بذكرك لهجا وقلبي بحبك متيما ومن علي بحسن إجابتك وأقلني عثرتي واغفر زلتي فإنك قضيت على عبادك بعبادتك وأمرتهم بدعائك وضمنت لهم الإجابة فإليك يا ربي نصبت وجهي، وإليك يا ربي مددت يدي، فبعزتك استجب لي دعائي، وبلغني مناي، ولا تقطع من فضلك رجائي، واكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعدائي. يا سريع الرضا، يا سريع الرضا، يا اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء، فإنك فعال لما تشاء. يا من اسمه دواء وذكره شفاء وطاعته غنى، ارحم من رأس ماله الرجاء وسلاحه البكاء. يا سابغ النعم، يا دافع النقم، يا نور المستوحشين في الظلام، يا عالما لا يعلم، صل على محمد وآل محمد، وافعل بي ما أنت أهله. وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله، وسلم تسليما كثيرا. For the arwah of all the marhumin, of all those who are present here today and all those who have passed away, please recite Surah Al-Fatiha with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. You want to read Surah Al-Fatiha? Okay. We'll recite Surah Al-Fatiha with Mustafa Al-Musawi.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين إن الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم ولا الضالين صدق الله العظيم.
أحسنت مصطفى. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Thank you for joining us on this wonderful Laylatul Jum'ah. We are honored as always to have our esteemed scholar and resident alim, Sayyid Abbas Razavian, here with us today. And inshallah, I believe that just as a friendly reminder, we will have a event, inshallah, a Saturday. It's posted in the email. I'm not sure the exact date. I believe it's November 6th. It's to commemorate the birthday of Imam al-Askari alayhi salam. And that will be held here at Yasin. So please join us, inshallah, for that. I believe the date is November 5th or 6th, but please check your emails. That will confirm the date. Inshallah, we'll start here for the birthday of Imam al-Askari alayhi salam. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Sayyid Abbas Razavian with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
No, it's good. I stole your seat. If you bring it this way, and I'll do this. I got it. That's okay. Yeah, maybe you can turn that LED. Thanks. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى يوم الدين. How many here knew that it was the beginning of the new lunar month today? Maybe not many, I don't know, thank you. So, one thing that we must keep in mind is that, and I said this before, is that we have to keep track of this calendar when it is a new month. And through either way you get confidence to make sure that the moon has been sighted. But many people, because they're busy with the calendars that they have and the schedules, the appointments, they forget to check the lunar month. So alhamdulillah, we had the first day was today of Rabiul Thani, and we had this new moon salat that is a very good salat for us to do. And the way you perform it is you do 30 after Tawheed, 30 Qul Huwa Allahu Ahad or Surah Tawheed. And in the second unit, 30 after Hamd, 30 Surah Al-Qadr. And then there's a few lines afterwards. Then we have that if a person recites it, it will be protected to the next month. In very religious cities or religious people, usually the beginning of the month, they start out with going and doing the salat at a shrine, at a masjid or a holy place, to go to a holy place and perform this. And that is the way that they start at the beginning of the month. So this is a salat for us to remember, to try to incorporate in our lives and encourage others to do the new moon salat, and also to pay attention to when it is the new moon and to see the waladats, the days of the birth anniversaries of the Imams Ahl al-Bayt, and also the days of martyrdom, to track this. Not only track, the different national holidays or different holidays that we have in our calendar, to make it an important part of our lives that we have Islamic holidays or Islamic days that we should be remembering. Please recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa Can man be an ethical being without religion? Do we need to have religion to be ethical? Some people, they complain. They do business with people that are from Muslim countries, and they say they had a bad experience, for example. And it's something very unfortunate for us to hear. But we're talking about theoretically, and then I'll give you examples practically, that actually the religion of Islam and the relationship we have with God should make us the most ethical of people. And it should not be in a way that you can be ethical, truly ethical, without God, without religion. Yes, there's some confusion. Sometimes we think ethics is only to someone that says hello to you, and you say alaykum hello back to them, and they're very nice, and they smile, and they're very courteous. That's adab, that's mannerisms. That's not the root of ethics. Ethics is about these spiritual traits, ethical traits that we have, these sifat that we have, either good or bad, that are ingrained in us. And when tested and when tried, these ethical traits that we have in us, it comes out. Let me give you an example of how important it is to have religion in order to be ethical. Because others, they question this. They say, look, sometimes we go to non-Muslim countries and it seems like, in terms of mannerisms and ethics and business, it seems like it's easier to live here, for example. But this isn't the case. Because we haven't examined people how they truly are. When they're tested how they truly are, then you will see how ethical a person is. Look at the test that the prophets and imams were given. All you saw in the most difficult of days and nights was that they worshipped God the most and they served the people the best. That's what you see in prophets and imams. So I give you this example. Imagine, I know everyone here is a genius and smart, but imagine your IQ was normal, average. And you study hard for your exams, you attend class, and whatever you try hard, you get a C, for example. You work very hard, and you get a C. But you have a friend, for example, me, for example, I'm just joking. You have a friend that doesn't study, doesn't attend class, and the score comes back A. And you're wondering, what's going on? That's not fair. That's not fair. I have to work so hard. I have to study. And this said, Abbas is getting an A every time, for example. I'm joking. Then another exam comes, another class comes, another exam comes. Would you, maybe in some part of your bottom of your heart or in intentions, wish that he got a C once, for example? It's like, look, I'm working so hard. He doesn't even try, and he's just passing these, and he's just acing everything. Would you wish some part of your heart that maybe they'll get a C once, or maybe they'll at least get a B? You wish naqs for them. You wish God to take away some of the ni'mat He's given. Maybe someone would be like that. Or in this another issues, business life, wealth, money of the world, that you try so hard, you work so hard, and ends don't meet. But someone doesn't really try, and he just gets all this wealth. Or in health, their family themselves, always sick, always something is happening. But the other person, they see, is always healthy. So a person without true belief in God, most people, if not all, will become jealous at least to some bit. Will wish, like, what's going on? I'm working so hard, it's just unfair. If a person is a monotheist, is a muwahhid, and they truly believe, because the problem with jealousy is that it stems from another problem, and that is lack of belief in at-tawheed al-af'ali, lack of belief in the oneness of God and His actions, is that all actions go back to God, even those actions that He allowed us to have free will. So a muwahhid looks at the same case. He says, who gave them their intelligence? Did I give it to them? Or did God give them their intelligence? Who? He says, God gave them that intelligence. So therefore, he says, in reality, if you become jealous at such a person, all you are doing is questioning God. Well, God, why did you make him smart and make me, for example, average? Beauty is the same way. Wealth in the same way. So for us to truly become an ethical person, And to leave jealousy, for example, you need religion. Because that is the solution to the problem, is that these are, God has given it. At least in some of the ethical issues that we have. Same with wealth. Some person is extremely wealthy. He's a billionaire. Another person is starving or doesn't have enough, is always under stress. But that muwahhid, that monotheist sees, look, God is testing one with wealth and testing the other with poverty. And they see, a true monotheist sees these items that we have in our lives just like a test. I don't know if they still have Scantron or not. Do they have Scantron? Those, mashallah, nice exams, and the grades come in very fast. Oh, they see wealth and cars and homes or even yachts or whatever. They just see that as a Scantron exam. Because do you get, for example, attached to a test, that Scantron, that test, the white piece of paper? No. Or those exams you do. That's just a medium for you to be tested by. Doesn't mean it's yours. Because everything belongs to God. It's just a medium for me to be tested by. Therefore, if I have wealth, then God is testing me, the test of wealth. If I'm in poverty, then He is testing with patience, for example. So these issues is one example I gave of jealousy. It becomes solved with our spiritual connection and with our religion and with our theology that we have in belief in God. So a true monotheist is one that sees all these actions from God. So that is one aspect. And many other examples we can give, that when you really think about it, that a person that is ethical, a person that is spiritual and ethical, is always thinking that God is watching him, is always fearing God, always hoping in God's mercy. And there is no, if a person does not believe in God, if a person does not have religion, then what is the guarantee for them to always be ethical, always, with this nafs that is amara bisu, with this nafs that is a perpetual instigator of sin? They can, in one night, for example, they'll say, it is a wedding, don't be so harsh. You know, all these rules that you have, all these things that you know, for example, music, and you're saying it's unethical, for example, to listen to music, it would cause corruption, or dancing, or whatever. Things that we believe it causes corruption. It says one night, for example, one night's not going to harm me if, God forbid, someone doesn't have religion. So, okay, one night, I'll make it up or something, right? But if a person believes in this religiously, that one sin, that could be the sin that causes God to become angry with me, they will be a guarantee that that person will have true ethical behavior. So therefore, my dear friends, when you think about this, and you see that the potential that we have in Islam is to become the best and reach makaramul akhlaq, the best of ethics, this only comes by the fact of that connection to God. Last week I gave the example, the link between spirituality and ethics. And we talked about the fact that after the Renaissance, when there's animosity towards religion in Europe, that many wanted to replace religion with just ethics and just be ethical people without being religious people. And we said that in reality, this is nothing but farther from the truth. I want you to examine yourselves right now. And tell me, when were you the most ethical? When were you the most patient? Right? When you look at verses of the Quran, and you see that the dhikr of God, ala dhikrillah tatma'innul qulub, with the remembrance of God comes calmness. Right? When were you the most calm? Because if a person is anxious, if a person is stressed out, the chances are they will snap. They will become angry. When were you the most ethical? When were you the most peaceful? Wasn't it when you're in the most holiest of places? Wasn't it when you were in the highest of spiritual stations? I know people, and imagine yourself when you're on a ziyarah trip. Someone might steal your luggage. They might, I don't know, step on your toe. They might push you this way or that way. But at the same time, that person says, it's fine. I'm so happy. You don't snap at anyone. I'm just so calm. Why? Because when you're connected to God, which is the sources of all Kamal, you feel that calmness. But now take yourself out. And the same thing would happen to you in the daytime, in your daily routine. Someone steals something, you have your luggage, somebody bumps into you, someone cuts you off, for example, going to work. You just want to come, maybe try to chase them down and see where they are. So there is this relationship between the peace that you have, the ethical behavior you have with people, with spirituality. And there's nothing else that can help us as much. Sometimes people ask me, and not as if I have the best akhlaq or ethics or I'm the most patient, but they ask me, what can I do at home? I want to be more patient. What can I do? Yes, there's ways to be more patient, but all of that goes back to the fact of how connected are you with God at that time. Right, for example, salat. Right after we do salat, you're patient, you feel calmness. Someone does something to you, you hear something, you don't really get that agitated, you can control it better. Then when you're in the midday, busy with business, busy with work, and you are far from God, when you're doing this without God. The same way when it comes to grief, the same way when it comes to fear. These are all roots of ethical problems that we have that come from being separated from God. Because inna awliya Allah la khawfun alayhim wa la hum yahzanun. The friends of God, they don't have fear. They don't have huzn. One of the philosophers that tried to refute religion, Bertrand Russell, and he was saying that religion just comes from the fact that people want comfort. And because they fear the unknown, they fear things, they turn to religion because that's a place for them to, as a sanctuary, that's a place for them to feel comfort. What can you say to someone like that? That says that religion comes from people seeking comfort. Religion seeks from people that have fear for the unknown. So therefore, na'udhu billah, they worship a God just because they're afraid of things happening. The answer we say is naqth. We give an answer that contradicts this. We say to him, well then, if this is true, if fear was the cause of people to become religious, then why is it that our religious figures, our prophets, their successors, were actually the most brave of people? If religion was because of fear, then the most religious would be the most fearful. But you see people like our Holy Prophet of Islam, embodiment of courage, fighting and struggling for 13 years in Mecca, 10 years in Medina. You see his successor and his brother, his nafs, Ali ibn Abi Talib. In some of the traditions say 1,000 scars he had on his holy body at the end of his life. Coming to give verses of the chapter of Bara'ah, of Tawbah, to tribes that they calculated and counted and said that everyone in that tribe, their different tribes, at least one member of their family was killed by Ali alayhi salam. And going without a weapon to teach and to talk about bara and separation with the polytheists, bravery. On Laylatul Mabid, staying at the time of the bed of the Holy Prophet of Islam, you see the courage of Imam Ali alayhi salam is an example upon the tongues of everyone. So therefore, religion is not caused by fear. Actually, religion removes fear. Inna awliya Allah la khawfun alayhim. They don't have fear. And you see, if religion is practiced properly, there is no anxiety, there is no huzn and grief, because it removes all of this. When do you see, God forbid, these ethical problems, and you see, separation from ethics, you know that what in reality there is a separation from God. Because a true muwahhid has ma'iyyat with God. A true muwahhid has companionship with God. He's living with God throughout the entire day. And everything he is doing is to serve God because he believes in that purpose. Let me give you another example, the way that our beliefs changes our ethics. Imagine, God forbid, we didn't know why we're created. Imagine, God forbid, we didn't know where we're going to. We didn't know the mabda, we didn't know the ma'ad, we didn't know where we came from, where we're going to. We don't know the purpose of life. All that we would see is darkness. All there would be is confusion. And I just believe in a scientific and natural, even it's not really scientific, even that everything evolved, that there are cells, and somehow I became a human. And I'm just randomly, by chance, just living here and walking here by chance. That would be one of the most depressing things that could happen to someone. Because I'm just here by chance. Maybe I didn't want to be here. There's no purpose for me. I didn't know where I came from. I don't know what I should do. All that is going to cause us more anxiety, more problems, more unethical behavior, because there's no accountability for my actions. Religion says if a person does an atom's weight of evil or good, it will be seen. They're entirely viewing and living their life with God watching them. They have purpose in their life. So if there is hardship, if there's difficulty in their life, they view it as if they go on a journey. A person that is climbing up a mountain, there's going to be places that are very steep. There are going to be places that are flat. He knows that life is going to give me sometimes challenges and it's going to be sometimes easy. I know that. But what is important is I'm going through this journey towards God. I know that there is a mission I have. I know there is a path for me. And I know there is a destination. But if you don't believe that, then all these ups and downs will just cause you to go crazy. Because what's the purpose of all this suffering? This world, my brothers and sisters, is filled. Imam Ali alayhi salam has ad-dar mahlufun bil bala. This world is covered with bala. It's the reality of the world. There is hardship in this world. There is calamity in this world. There is suffering in this world. The only way to leave this gloomy world where people are right now, we're talking, are starving to death, are sick. The only way we can take ourselves away from this gloomy world that has bala in it is to believe in God and to believe that this world is only a bridge, only a temporary place you're going to be, and you're being tested with it. He created life and death to test you, which one of you will have the best actions? Which one of you will be patient in terms of that calamity? Which one of you will be grateful and appreciative in times of ni'mah? And therefore, there is no reason to have anxiety. There's no reason to be sad, no reason to struggle anymore. Because all these actions are for God, and there's a purpose, and that purpose is for you to reach God through it. And that's the best way. Some ask, then how come God didn't just drop me in heaven, for example? Why did I have to go through this treacherous world called life? It is because you have to realize that yourself. This test is not like a test where you just get the results. This test that God has created for us is transforming us. It is making us someone different. Everyone here that had hardship or struggled with something, I'm sure that you can answer this question much better than everyone else, that after you had patience with a difficult test, you believe you are in reality much stronger than you were before that test. You actually change. You become stronger. If you look at life, how life is from the very simple life that a child has, and then when a person becomes a teenager and causes so much trouble for their parents, and then after that, they become, a young adult, they get married, then they become parents themselves, and then they have children. Slowly, this entire cycle, you see, is, mashallah, a complete cycle for us to reach completion. With all different tests, every time you see a different stage in life, means a different test for me, different way. Some people are actually the most patient and ethical before marriage. Then they get married, then they become a hurricane. A tornado, a Sayyid tornado, for example. But they become very upset. Why? Because the example they gave is this. When you look at a pool of water, when there's no movement, it's stagnant, there's no algae or it's clear water. But take something like a stick and go like this in the pool of water, you're going to see algae and things that are moving around in that water all over the water. Why? Because it's being tested, it's being moved, it's shaken up. Then you'll see what's actually inside. That's what marriage, for example, every stage in life that we have, it is like that test, it moves us. Sometimes then they say, oh, no, my wife made me such a bad person, my husband made me such a... Actually, no, it's just that movement is happening and you're being tested and whatever filth and junk that exists is coming out. That's it. So therefore, when a person looks at life as a muwahhid, as a monotheist, and sees that purpose, and believes that God is watching him, and just believes whatever we have, even children, we don't own. Whatever there is inna lillah. Everything belongs to God. Even a child that's so dear to me, that belongs to God. I am only in the trust. God has entrusted me with this soul. That's it. You're the wali of that soul. You're the guardian of that soul. Where does it say you're the owner of that child? You're not the owner of that child. God owns it. And the Hausa, even the books, they used to write the name. They say, this is my book. They actually write their name, but they say, what can I do? Say that actually Allah is the owner of everything. Even if I write this, book, I say it's my name, my book. And in reality, it's God's. When you believe in that, inna lillah, everything, the malik of this entire world, there's nothing but, no one but Allah, then how can you have grief when you lose something? It wasn't yours in the first place to be sad. It's very easy to say. I'm not saying it's, easy to implement this belief. But this is showing us that the potential that we have as Muslims is the potential to reach makarimul akhlaq like your Prophet and Imams. Because it's with this worldview, with this theology, with this way that it solves all the problems that we have, then you can be the most ethical creatures. And this is, for us, good news here tonight that we're here together, that we have a religion, we talked about this absolute truth, this is the path of truth, and therefore we should see results, we should be better, we should be able to distinguish a true believer from, for example, someone that's not a believer, just from their behavior, just how they treat people. You should be able to see them, just without, even if they don't say what religion they have, what belief they have. They should be walking just like Imam Ali alayhi salam is walking, living life how Imam Ali alayhi salam is living life, how he lived life. If they saw that, the people, when they saw Rasulullah, they didn't see Islam, and they only saw one person by the name of Muhammad al-Amin. Muhammad. And he was so good, he was so pure, that they followed him just from his goodness. They call him As-Sadiq al-Amin because he was so ethical, they kept his money with him. Even at times when they were at war with him, they kept their money with him. And that when he was going to go to Medina and he was going to have hijrah, he told Imam Ali alayhi salam to give people back their money. People still had entrusted their belongings with the Holy Prophet, even after Shayba Abi Talib and trying to expel him from Mecca. They still had their belongings and trust with him. But because he's going to move to Medina, now he can no longer hold and trust those belongings anymore. But now we look at our life and that, this is the second part. So the first part is we have this huge potential to reach makarim al-akhlaq with this religion and way and practice and the narrations and the path that we have that is clear for us. The bad news is this, is that, when you have opportunity and you miss out on that opportunity, then it's much easier for God to take away your blessings, much easier for God to punish you than at the same time. Because you had an opportunity that others did not. The path was clear for you. For others, they did not know the path. It was not clear for them, but for you, the hujjah was done. The proof has been laid. Even I say places that I don't consider myself resident alim at all. I say resident student or just a helper. But places that have a true resident alim, I will say that actually all that means is that their congregation, there was more of a chance for them to be punished. Why? Because they'll ask in the day of judgment, why didn't you do wudu right? Why didn't you do your salat right? Why didn't you pay your khums right? If somebody didn't have a person to refer to, then they say, okay, I didn't have anyone, I didn't know. But then those centers that have someone as expert, as a specialist, and they'll say, why didn't you do this action right? He came there a few times in the week, why didn't you ask him? What excuse would a person have then? So at the same time, we are more responsible when we have this path clear for us to ask us, why didn't you reach this potential you had? This religion would have brought you here. And the day of judgment is the day of hasad, the day of regret. You say, oh, I could have become at this position. Why was I stuck, in the first stage of Tawheed, the first stage of monotheism? I could have went and excelled in different stages of Tawheed. That I could have reached a Tawheed, a Shuhudi. I could have reached the final stage of Tawheed, which is witnessing Tawheed. That in my entire life I'm living with God. Everything I see is calling that I'm in need of God. Everything I see is a sign of God. I cannot look anywhere and not see God, as the narration from Imam Ali alayhi salam has, that do not look at the world for what it is, look through the world. A muwahid looks through the world and only sees Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the sadness of this is that we live in a society that all the blessings of God are mentioned. We go through, I don't know if I explained this here or not. I went and visited a place where they show animals or wildlife, and they're fascinating, these creatures that God has created. And they describe beautifully everything about this animal so far discovered, and many things are still being discovered about animals and their capabilities, their communication. But you hear and you become so sad that not one mention of God is ever made. Who created this? Who created this? The entire time you're talking about the makhluk, you don't talk about the khaliq. It's like me going into the best museum with you, inshallah, a field trip to Louvre Museum in France, in Paris, inshallah, just to understand Tawheed. We do a field trip, and you go and see, for example, the Mona Lisa, and you don't think of the painter. Everyone there is thinking, well, look at the painter, look how they designed this, they illustrated this. They're thinking of the painter the entire time. But why, when we look at the creation of God, we can't have that Tawheed, where you look through these things and you see, God has created this, God is sustaining this, God has created this world. It's an absolute disaster, I think, in my part. They had the same show, a nature show in Iran, to be able to have people put these two things together, which is natural. And they called the title of this nature show, Look at What God Has Created. Look at what God has created. The title, and it should be that. Look at what God has created. But why do we mention these things in the complete separation from God? So yes, when we look at the first step, and we said that we will regret on that day that we did not become advanced in our Tawheed, we see that the first step of everything in religion, everything that is good, everything in ethics, is understanding God, ma'rifatullah. Awwaluddin ma'rifatu. The foremost part of religion is understanding God. When you understand God, jealousy will be gone, hypocrisy will be gone, mistreatment of others will be gone, and Muslims will be able to behave in the best manners. I'm going to give you this story, inshallah, and we'll pray, inshallah, we'll make dua. Once one of our great scholars by the name of Sahib Kifaya, Muhammad Kazim Khorasani, he lived in the time period of 1839 to 1911. Great scholar. They still study his books in Usul today, Islamic legal theory. They even tried to replace it. It's a 100-year-old book. They tried to replace it, but they just couldn't find a better book that talks about Islamic legal theory. And this is the last book that they study, because after that they do ba'thul kharaj, which means kharajul matn or kharajul kitab. There's no more book in ba'thul kharaj. The most advanced levels, there's no more book that they review. It's just the teacher's instructions. But in the intermediate level, the last book is one of them is Kifayatul Usul. And to understand how to live as a monotheist, how to be ethical, how not to have anxiety, and how Tawheed solves all of this. They say in Najaf at that time was a time of starvation. It was a time of hardship, Najaf. And the scholars, big students that later on became big scholars actually, they were with their teacher, Akhund Khurasan. You come Akhund, just when you just say Akhund, that means him, because he was like the scholar, the sheikh. Akhund means that. And a person came to give money, to give khums, and it was actually a sayyid, and he had brought a businessman to give khums to this marja, taqleed, and scholar, Sahib Kifai. And it was a large amount of money. And then when that, say for example, that businessman left, that person that came with him was asking, and he wrote something. He talked to Marhum Akhund in a way discreetly, and Akhund became upset. And then you see that he basically gives all the money that that person gave to that one Sayyid that was with that businessman. And just to give you some background, the Hawza is supported by Khums. The Hawza, the seminary, is supported not by a government institution. It always has been separate from government institutions. It doesn't get funding from one of the ways that Sahwan Imam is spent, that the jurist sees either masjids, centers, Hussainiyas, or people that are in poverty, helping them, hospitals. And one of the services amongst them is to help the young students be able to fund their studies. So they were in a difficult position economically, financially. Everyone was. Even Marhum Akhun was. And he gave the entire money that they were maybe expecting or happy for. He gives it all away. Then they ask him, they're afraid, embarrassed, his teacher. He says, teacher, what happened? What did you say to him? He said, actually, the Sayyid told me that, I have 2 sons that want to get married, and Marhum Akhun asked him, how much is it going to cost, for their marriage? I'll help you, their marriage. He said, this much. And he said, no, he got upset. He said, that's too little. You need this much for them. And he gave this large sum of money to helping the kids that wanted to get married and their expenses. Then they got upset. The students said, why did you give it all to him? Now we are, you see us, we're starving, and so you gave it all to one person. What about us? Even forget about us. What about yourself? You're living in poverty. You're living in poverty. You could have helped yourself with that. And then they say Marhum Akhun begins to cry when he hears this, that his students were upset that why did he give the money all to someone else? And he begins to cry and says, sorry, we upset you, sorry, what did we say? And he says, no, I am upset, but after all this teaching, you didn't learn the first lesson, that awwaluddin ma'rifatu. The first part of religion is God's knowledge, is understanding God. You don't know that rizq comes from ar-raziq, from God. You didn't know that when you say me, I had nothing and Allah supported me in my entire life. I have, I'm a jurist now and I live well, alhamdulillah, That you did not understand that He provides your rizq. You really believe that rizq is from me giving it to someone else. You didn't understand that actually God determines who that rizq belongs to. And he began to cry. So you understand those that are muwahid, like the story of Marhum Akhun, that they really believe that sustenance and money and all these things now come to someone more, some less, but that's all determined by God. Doesn't mean you should stop working. I'm not talking about the material and physical factors of that Allah wants you to try your hardest and to gain wealth, or that Imam Ali alayhi salam mentions that there's 2 types of rizq. One rizq you chase and the other rizq that chases you. But that spiritual factor of rizq, it all comes from God subhanahu wa ta'ala. And a muwahid, when he understands that and he still tries hard, he will be at peace, because this is what God, how much God wants from me in this world. It doesn't mean he loves me less or loves me more. This is my test. This is the trial that I have. And it doesn't matter, how much he'll give me or not. My reaction is important. The way, if I have patience, if it's less, if I have patience, if it's more, what I will do with it. So to answer this question tonight about can you be truly ethical without religion, the clear answer is no, you cannot truly reach makaram al-akhlaq without religion. You cannot. Because religion is ingrained in it, is akhlaq, the study of akhlaq deeply, and ethics is related to theology. Ethics is related to the verses of Quran, is related to the study of narrations, which all point to the fact that if you want to be truly ethical, you have to analyze yourself, do muhasabah of yourself, do muragha of yourself, watch yourself throughout the day, do musharata, promise yourself I won't do anything unethical. All about analyzing your faults. If somebody truly analyzes their faults daily, if a person promises themselves and watches over themselves truly, they will never be an unethical person, because they're always working on themselves. Why? To reach makaram al-akhlaq, to reach God. So therefore, the best way for us to be the most ethical of creation is to be the most serious in our religion, inshallah. Please recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajal farajum. If there's any questions, easy questions, take it easy, inshallah, tonight. Last time we have some curveballs no curveballs, just fastballs, inshallah. Any questions that are easy, and 2 + 2 = 4, something like that, inshallah. Yeah, what's my name? Yes, please.
You see that now the rizq comes from Allah. Is that increased after marriage as well, right? Especially
Yes.
kids.
Yes.
The rizq comes from Allah, for the sake of his kids.
So, a very good question. When we say rizq comes from God, it's very complicated. It's not like you do this and you become guaranteed to become super rich. One part of that is so much involved with our decisions and preparations and how well we strive. One of it is part of that. Even success, just success in general, comes with how hard you work at something. And I say this example all the time. A person does not attend class, a person does not take notes or listen at all. How can they expect to pass the exam? They cannot. Even if they make dua all the time, because that physical part was not there. But that material part, which is that spiritual factor in rizq, then there's going to be many things that change that. One is marriage. One is that good type of rizq that we look for example, sin. We just read in Dua Kumail, تُغَيِّرُ النِّعَمْ. I seek refuge from sins, forgiveness and sins that change my ni'am. Sins, it causes bala on me. Sometimes that bala is brought for me because I did perform the sin. It's different when a non-Muslim sins or when a Muslim sins. Much different, because we have that responsibility. And marriage, for example, kindness to parents, for example, rizq. Salat layl, for example, increases rizq. Reciting certain chapters of the Quran will provide rizq. So all these other ways. So I always recommend everyone, when it comes to increasing their rizq, look at your plan that you have. You got to be very, this day and age, smart about it. You got to work hard. True. Then also look at your spiritual advantages you can have from reading certain verses of Quran, certain actions of worship, and in general not sinning, for example. One person, I gave you this example, he would never sin. He was a true wali of God. And they told him, do Suratul Waqa'ah for rizq at nights. That's another thing, Suratul Waqa'ah. He stopped doing it. He says, I'm getting too much money. He got too much because it worked. He had taqwa. So whatever actions he did really had that spiritual effect. So yes, you have to put it all together. But if somebody at the end does this part, the physical side, the spiritual side, and still they are poor, then that is a test from God. Test from God. Sometimes our imams got loans from people. They got loans. That is a test from God. But yes, in general, a lot of times we say it's God's fault, na'udhu billah, but it's actually reality, we're at fault. Spiritually and also physically. Any other questions? I know we had Muharram and Safar, but I want to dim the lights, and I believe in Ayatul Bahjat says 2 are the most important mustahab actions. 2, he says, are the most recommended actions. One is Salatul Layl, the night prayer. The second is crying for Imam Hussein. He says the second one, we might even have more narrations than the first. Crying for Imam Hussein. Again, bringing your spiritual wisdom. Later on, hopefully, if we continue this topic, how to reach God in ethical perfection through wilayat of the Imams. Because we have hadith that if God wanted, directly he could have everyone passed the Sirat and entered heaven. But they are the doors of heaven. These are the doors. He have placed us, the Ahlul Bayt, as the doors for satisfaction, contentment, doors of heaven. And this is one of the best ways to become ethical people, to reach those beings that were the most ethical, that did reach makaram al-akhlaq, mentioning them so much and crying for them, so that maybe God will make us a little bit like them. One of the most ethical we have in Karbala. Karbala is a display of ethics. The enemies of Imam Hussein, this display of unethical behavior. One of the most ethical people that today everyone remembers, and is not one of the holy imams, but because of his sincerity, his bravery and loyalty is remembered so much, is Hadrat Abbas. He's the brother of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Ethics, if you want to see ethics and how religion creates the most ethical of people, look at the son of Ali alayhi salam. Look at Hadrat Abbas. It's an honor just mentioning his holy name. Hopefully, if God forbid, any sins we committed, any faults we had this week, just by mentioning him and crying for him, inshallah, all be removed. Inshallah, Ahlul Bayt will grab our hands in a way that we will always remain on Sirat al-Mustaqim. May we be sacrificed for Hadrat Abbas, one of the last martyrs of Imam Hussein. That time that he came to his brother and mentioned to his brother, do I have permission to go? لما رأى وحدته وأتى أخاه. He saw Hussein. He saw how estranged Hussein is. He saw that Hussein's companions were all martyred. He came and saw how lonely Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salam is. Hadrat Abbas, at least you're still here. What did Imam Hussein go through when he was all alone and there's no other person in his army? And he had to fight the enemy, 10,000 people, 30,000 people. He had to ride and through that army all alone. لما رأى وحدته, Hadrat Abbas saw Imam Hussein is gharib. He saw he's estranged. He saw he's all alone. He says, وَقَالَ يَا أَخِي هَلْ مِنْ رُخْصَةٍ. Do you allow me to go to fight? فَبَكَى الْحُسَيْنِ بَكَاءً شَدِيدًا. There are times in Ashura where Hussein ibn Ali cries severely. One of them is when Abbas says, I want to go. I need to go, Hussein. He says that my chest, at that time, he says, فَقَالَ عَبَّاسِ قَدْ ضَاقَ صَدْرِي. My chest cannot take it anymore, Hussein. It's filled. The chest of Hussein, the chest of Hadrat Abbas, Ashura, there's so much calamity that someone like Hadrat Abbas was filled with that patience. There's no more I can take Hussein anymore. And Hadrat Abbas goes loyal, and you hear example that he says to him in the maqtal to go at least and take some water. And one of the most ethical actions in Ashura is when he becomes finally, they put a large amount of people to protect the water. And Hadrat Abbas, with his bravery and courage, reaches the water and he sees the water. You know, there are a few people on the day of Ashura that didn't have any drink. Maybe others had a little bit to sip. But few people that for 3 days they did not have any water. Hadrat Abbas, Lady Zainab, and Imam Hussein Isa. Imagine someone 3 days from thirst, not having water, and seeing water at that time, thinking and reminding himself of the family of Imam Hussein, reminding himself of the daughters of Imam Hussein. At that time, taking the water, even though no one else is watching, it's just him and God. Taking that flask, filling it, and then taking water for himself, but he thinking of the thirst of Imam Hussein and pouring that water back and not taking a sip of that water so that he can become shaheed and martyred with thirsty lips like Hussein ibn Ali. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Ya Allah, give us a little bit, inshallah, of the loyalty of Abbas. That loyalty when Ummul Baneen was asked, was my son loyal? They say that no, loyalty was Abbas. Your son was not loyal. Loyalty was Abbas. Ya Allah, bless the soul of our marhumin, inshallah. Allow us to have ma'rifatullah. Allow us to have ma'rifatul Rasul, ma'rifatul Imam, and ma'rifatul of Mi'at. Ya Allah, all the people that are sick, cure them, inshallah, because of Hadrat Abbas. Ya Allah, all the du'as that every one of you have right now, may inshallah, because of the name of Hadrat Abbas, Allah grant you all of your hawa'ij, inshallah. Ya Allah, save us from poverty, inshallah. Save us from bala, inshallah. Give us health, inshallah. Give us wealth, inshallah. Ya Allah, give us knowledge, give us spirituality, give us salatul layl, give us munajat, give us halawatul iman, the sweetness of faith, inshallah. Allah, give us the ability to meet our Imam, see our Imam, and to be at service of our holy Imam. Expedite his return with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Brothers and sisters, let's wrap up with Dua al-Hujjah, inshallah. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقاعدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.